Refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here, first time, folks?
Continuing meditation practice and deepening my understanding.
Well, welcome, glad you're here. Yeah.
Just moved here, looking for a sangha.
Nice. This is the best you could find? There's a lot, man. There's like 50 Buddhist places within 2-mile radius of here.
Throw a stone, you're going to
10-mile radius, yeah. So I would choose a bunch of other ones before coming back here. Where'd you move from?
Denver, Colorado.
Right on. Well, welcome. Nice to have you here. Yeah. A couple other hands I saw first time. Yeah.
I've been going through grief for the last 2 years, so I'm in a journey just finding, just wanting to be calm.
Yeah. Grief is rough. Yeah, sorry for your grief. Anyone else in here going through grief? Just a couple. The others who didn't put their hands up, they're probably lying. So, yeah. Yeah, anyone else? Before I ramble, first time here. Yeah, life is, the Buddha's not kidding when he said life is filled with suffering, dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. It's what we get. And it changes, it evolves, it gets better, it gets worse. We have happy, joyful moments, we have painful, sad moments. This is the nature of life. And so this practice is, for those of you who've been around a while, or if you are brand new maybe to Buddhism, the practice is just understanding that and learning to be with that. And the more we resist that, by that I mean the more we resist the pain and the suffering, the more we actually suffer. And so part of it is just embracing. I'm not a fan of the phrase letting go, because it's very dismissive in a way, I find, when people say, I just want to let that go. But embracing it, embracing the pain, embracing the sadness, embracing the heartbreak, embracing the loss, and also embracing the joy and happiness and wonderful moments and everything that is incredibly beautiful and good in your life. So for me, this practice is seeing all of that and then being able to hold it, meaning just sit with it and not always try to fix things. It's something I think a lot of people with Buddhism struggle with, is they're trying to fix stuff, whether it's themselves or people around them. We're often in this fix-it mode, as if something has to change. And so then we're really just battling and struggling with that idea of trying to get something or someone to change, as opposed to actually just being with what it is that you're uncomfortable with. And so the mind isn't even necessarily focused on what is making you uncomfortable. It's too busy focused on what or who or how you're trying to change something or someone. So your fight is actually against nothing. So just sit with it. And that doesn't always make it easier. But they say misery loves company, right? So that's the joy of Sangha. It's the joy of coming together to sit with this stuff together. So with that, we'll start with a meditation practice to Those joining virtually, glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. Feel free to say hello as you are in the chat box there. A couple things to tell you before we begin. For those who might be new, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. You don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Phones ring, things happen, right? Life is learning to be quiet and still within all of the chaos. That's this practice. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders, hands can be on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable for you. I will guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. I'll say things periodically to either wake you up because you've fallen asleep, or just remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to the present moment. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. Eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. The mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being, no different than any one of us. He began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what you get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we know all too well, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulties, challenges. This is life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do in every moment. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we start with working on our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice, and it's not easy. So it requires patience and diligence. Patience and diligence. If you can practice patience each day and work hard at training your mind to be present every day, life will be more enjoyable. Doesn't mean the chaos is going to stop. It doesn't mean all your problems are going to go away. They're not. But how you approach them and how you face them, that can change drastically. And then things don't seem so overwhelming. So, with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And for those joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. Feel free to say hello. If you have any questions, you can put them on the chat box. I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions.
I had a question. I was reading and I read about the 5 Buddha families. Is that important to just sitting meditation?
Say that last part again? Is that what?
Is that important to just sitting and just meditating?
No. Not at all. What else? Yeah.
My day-to-day life, when I meditate, I focus on the breath, but how do I keep the mind and the body together in the same place? Because the body is here, but the mind can be all over. Do I just have to keep bringing it back, or is there something that can help me?
Well, the simplest way is to just embrace Zen Master Dogen's teachings, which says the mind and body completely fall away, and you just abide in sensation of breath. So the mind and body are not all over the place because they're not there how you perceive them to be anyways. Clear?
To just basically be present with the experience instead of separating this my body, my mind, my spirit, just be with.
Yeah, I mean, to give it a very practical, the first one was practical, but that, might take you a couple weeks to, get that practice down. The idea of the mind being everywhere and the body, like you said, the mind, you said, if I heard you correctly, that the body's here, but the mind is everywhere. The mind is also here. Your mind right here can't be anywhere else but here. Your thoughts.
I'm on my thoughts, yeah, okay.
But at what moment in time are you thinking about those thoughts? Where are you? You're here. You're always here. Now, you might choose to think about something that happened to you 20 years ago that you're still angry at. But when are you thinking about that? When? Here. Now. Why? Why?
Because it's always now.
No, sorry. What I mean is, why, if you are here now, why are you thinking about something that happened 20 years ago?
Maybe it's a away something, I don't want to deal in my present, so I escape into my mind so I don't have to deal with something that I may not know what to do about it.
Yeah. And so why do you think you always have to know what to do with everything?
I guess that's my ego who thinks I'm supposed to have all the answers, and I don't know, and just be okay with not knowing.
You don't have all the answers? Thought I finally met somebody who did, you know. What I'm trying to help you see is that, which even with your responses, to me, it's very clear that you have the ability to stay present. You're just afraid of what's going on. And so you escape to the past, to the future. Our mind wanders to the past, we get angry, sad, depressed. Our mind wanders to the future, we feel stress, anxiety, fear, worry. And so, most times, most people spend so much time, as you said, I'm just repeating what your response was, in the past or the future because they don't like the present moment. But if you drop the idea of having to like anything, you literally responded with everything I am saying right now. And experience present moment. Drop the idea of likes and dislikes. And just be with life as it arises. Then you can actually experience present moment. Right? So the practice of meditation, often, and for those especially if you're newer to this or just been what I would consider misguided for many years, meditation is not an escape. Right? Meditation is not there to necessarily calm you down. Too many people meditate to make themselves feel what? Better. If you feel like shit and you meditate for 20 minutes, you can still feel like shit. But you just sat with that for 20 minutes. Congratulations. Anyone ever been really angry and done something really smart? It doesn't usually happen. So if you're really angry, learn to sit with that for 20 minutes. And then you're not doing things that harm yourself and harm others. But the problem is when anger or any emotion arises, anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, depression, fear, worry, whatever it is, when those emotions arise, we don't want them. So we escape. What meditation is doing is it's training your mind to be in the present moment. Not to feel peaceful, not to feel sadness, not to feel joy, not to feel... All those are just impermanent things that are flying around, made up in our head. The purpose of meditation is to train the mind to be present with life as it arises, beyond judgment. And if you can experience life as it arises, there's no need to escape anywhere to anything. There's nothing wrong with thinking about the past or planning for the future. It's not that these things are bad. But if these things were pleasant and enjoyable, you wouldn't have asked that question. Do you ever think about all the wonderful things that happened to you 20 years ago? Or all the wonderful things that may happen to you later today or tomorrow if we get that far? No, most people don't. So if we're going to fail miserably at having a trained mind, which most people will, then just fail miserably while at least thinking about positive things. Because you have them.
Yeah.
You know, if all your mind did was wander to wonderful things around you, you wouldn't be asking the question, how do I stop my mind from wandering? You'd be saying, wow, this is really cool. I can sit around and think about wonderful things that have happened in my entire life. That would suck if that went away. So you don't need that to go away. But again, training the mind to be present is just being with life as it arises. That's the meditation. Don't use it as an escape. Don't think running your meditation class is going to solve all your problems. As I always say, almost every single day, right? If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation is not going to fix it. It's going to help you understand your life that is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can actually make changes in your life and be pleasant and enjoy it. And then you don't have to run anywhere. Stay home, watch cartoons, eat cereal, good to go. Pretty sure the Buddha said that exactly. What else? Question here, a couple questions So, question of what is the significance of having your palms together, bringing them to your head, mouth, and chest upon opening the service? So for me, any school of Buddhism has ritual and form that they follow in the way that they do prostrations and bowing and offerings and things like that. A lot of Western people, I'll just say this in brief, so many Western people come into Buddhism for the most part out of other religions, and so there's a lot of ritual and all that what they would consider religious stuff that goes on. A lot of people have, I'm not saying this is the nature of your question, but just to kind of paint the picture here, a lot of people have kind of issues with that. So they come into Buddhism, they think, well, it's not a religion, it's a philosophy, I'm going to sit there and it's going to help me feel better, right? But for 2,500 years, Buddhism has been practiced religiously all over the world, and if you go to cultural Buddhist temples, you'll feel like you're at Catholic church, a Jewish temple, whatever it might be. There's so much ritual, so many bowing, so much bowing and offerings and ritual and very disciplined structure, very strict. So all of that stuff exists in Buddhism. It's not why 99% of the people show up to a Dharma Bum Temple, and it's also not why we created the Dharma Bum Temple. We literally created the Dharma Bum Temple to pull that out of Buddhist practice and just focus on what did the Buddha actually teach, because we recognize that most Western people don't want to come in here and bow and chant and shave their head and put on robes and make perfect offerings every single day. For those of you who do, back to my comment earlier about all the wonderful Buddhist temples, there are tons of them around here. And it's fun and beautiful, and I suggest everybody experience that. Just go observe cultural Buddhist temples. See the bowing and the chanting and the rituals and things like that. You know what they're not doing? I promise you this. You know what they're not doing? Sitting around talking about all their problems and looking for answers. They're practicing. They're setting down all the madness in the world and in their heads, and they're just staying present with the ritual and the practice. It's incredibly liberating. But since most people don't want to do that, here we are. We'll go back to talking about our problems and looking for answers. So to your question around the bowing and things like that, for me, the way I was trained, there are certain things that I do. And so even entering this space, like literally I do a half bow before I set up. I talked about this actually a couple weeks ago. I do a half bow before I step up onto the main shrine. And then I do this little thing like on my knees here, and it looks like I'm doing some like iPad offering or something like that. I'm literally just starting the stream, and then it's on about a 12-second delay, so I'm pausing before that. And then when I go up to the main shrine, I do a half bow as I begin, and then normally I would do 3 full bows, but here I just do 3 half bows and then a half bow again. At the end of each bow or prostration, the way I was taught, the hands are here, and then as you go down, they kind of drop together like this, then they would come up here like this, and then they would come back down like this. Why? I have no idea. Did I ever ask? No. Did I ever care? No. It's what my master said to do, and it's what I did. The only thing I will share is that what I thought was really beautiful, my first teacher here, the nun, Venerable Yijur, she always said that when you join your palms together, it's taking the past that we're always, lost in, it's taking the future that we're always worried about, and it's bringing to the present moment. So joining palms to her, she always taught was coming present to this moment and being able to be with life as it arises. So I think that's very beautiful. I will say, though, that watching her do prostrations before she passed, the way she would open her hands was like one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. So every time when I do my bows and my hands open, she would describe it as a lotus flower blossoming and a compassion pouring out. So everyone has kind of their different rituals if they do them and if they're important to them. For me, I do them. Again, like I said, it's not anything we necessarily share here or we, having you all do it. I don't really care what you do, So, hope that answers your question. What else? There's a question here. It says, how do you deal with the habit of people pleasing? I laugh because it's really simple. I don't. You don't make it a habit. Why make it a habit? I didn't even read the rest of your question. But the first sentence is, how do you deal with the habit of people pleasing? What's wrong with being yourself? If you can practice to the place where you actually have love and compassion and kindness toward yourself and stop judging and critiquing and hating yourself, always the Buddhist teachings on compassion to overcome anger starts with self. If you start to have love and compassion and kindness towards yourself, I'm guessing whatever else you're asking about falls away. No need to please anyone. Practice compassion always, kindness always, but not for the sake of pleasing them. Do it because it's the proper way to do things. Be kind to people because it's proper to be kind, but not out of obligation of trying to please them. Then you go on to ask, when you realize you always censor yourself around loved ones and avoid conflicts, and this makes you not close to people. Yeah, so coming back to my first comment, if you want to censor yourself, censor yourself. If you don't, you don't. But it's not, to me, this practice is not about having this obligation to please others, right? And I want to be very clear here, because the Bodhisattva practice, which I always talk about, the Bodhisattva Path, is yes, pouring love and kindness out into the world. But that's very different, I think, than the nature of this question, right? We feed the homeless every Thursday, 4:30. We're not doing that to please them. It's not out of obligation. It's a practice of cultivating love and kindness and compassion and a wisdom that says people are hungry. But again, it all comes back to this idea of, for me, Buddhist teachings around non-self. We have this idea that we are a certain person or a certain way or a certain thing. And then we play that idea into what other people perceive us as. And if we don't like their perception of us, then we are constantly trying to please them and changing our perception, or changing the way they perceive us. So it's really just one massive manipulation, because we're constantly trying to get people to see us a certain way, when in reality most people don't even love themselves. So the practice of non-self is understanding that you are here. If you've never heard this, you're just here very differently from how you perceive yourself to be, right? Our physical body is here. We have this consciousness, we call that mind. That's here. But it's completely different from how you perceive it. And it's also impermanent. So every breath, every moment, every ash that falls from an incense stick, we're one moment closer to death. So why are you going to waste any of your time trying to please everybody else who knows nothing about you anyways? Good luck with that. So practice love and kindness towards yourself. What else? Questions? You two can fight it out.
I've seen hither and thither, so to speak, the crystal lotus, but never found a clear description or depiction of its significance or meaning. And I had a just immediate sense of what it meant to me upon seeing it, but I'm curious what that's about.
Yeah, so the lotus, you're talking about the flowers that are up there? Yeah. So crystal, I mean, just the material of it, I don't necessarily have some deep meaning behind like the crystal of it, other than that's just the material that it's made. But the lotus, whether you've heard this or not, or anybody in Buddhism, the expression is no mud, no lotus. You've heard that, yeah? So the idea is that the lotus comes from the mud. We think of mud being gross, and out of that blossoms the beautiful, right, lotus flower. So the same can be said for our minds, which are often in the mud, right? Whatever that means, to you. And so with the practice of loving kindness, compassion, generosity, morality, patience, all these kind of key buzzwords in Buddhism that you hear, you're taking that mind and you're turning the mind from mud into the beautiful lotus flower. So it's a blossoming of the beautiful mind. That's why no mud, no lotus, meaning very often one kind of similar theme I was talking about is, when you begin to explore the nature of your own mind, for most people it's not pretty, it's not fun, it's not pleasant, Still to this day, I'm like, I cannot believe half the shit I think. Like, where did that even come from? I'm not kidding. Like, I'm not just sitting here like trying to be humble and modest, like, oh no, Jeff's so great. No, my mind is a mess. It's probably more of a mess than it's ever been. But can you have love and compassion towards that? And can you not act on 99% of the things that you actually think? That's where the wisdom. So the two wings of Buddhism, wisdom and compassion. Right? Manjushri here represents wisdom. Kuan Yin, the large statue in the middle, represents compassion. So understanding the nature of the mind, what a mess it is, that's the mud. And then pouring compassion into it to love yourself for having that nature of a mind. And the wisdom saying, don't do most of the shit you want to do. because it'll cause harm to you and others. Make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, so you go about your day and you spread loving kindness to everybody that you meet, and maybe someone close to you is not nice to you. Just let it go and have compassion for them. Nothing else.
Yeah. So I think it's important to understand first and foremost that yes, the practice is to have love and kindness and compassion towards everyone you meet, all time, all space, all directions, all the time. You're saying this very directly, but I want to say this in general as well. Guaranteed, you are not going to get that back, always. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, right? So again, that's the nature of your question, which is in a certain situation, you're not getting it back. But I just wanted to start by saying, that's just life, folks. Very often you practice love and kindness and compassion into the world, and then you default into like, well, they're not that way towards me. And that's when you pour more love and more kindness and more compassion. Because if people aren't responding to that in a positive way, and they're coming back with anger and hatred and misery, and then you just add more anger and hatred and misery, it's just adding more fuel to the fire. So yes, the practice is to continue to pour out love and compassion. The one thing I'll add to that, which you said, is as far as let it go, kind of even what I said earlier about the expression let it go, I don't suggest as a practice like you don't need to let that go as if you don't matter. You are important. Letting it go can often, I don't want to get like too psychological here, but can often be a way of just saying, well, I don't deserve to be treated kind, I'm just going to let them. So I just want to make sure that that's not the case. We all deserve love and kindness and compassion. And when people treat us poorly, the only reason they're doing that is why? Does it have anything to do with you? No.
No, they're miserable.
They're miserable. They're absolutely miserable. They're sad, they're hurting, they're heartbroken, they're angry, they're depressed, they're miserable. And that too, when you love them, can be heartbreaking. But that's the part that, to me, it's not about letting it go. It's about embracing the fact that an individual is suffering. And they're taking their suffering out on you. And so the practice isn't necessarily to let that go, but to have wisdom and understand that that's why it's going on. And when one is able to do that, it makes it easier to be with that. So it's not about letting it go, it's actually being with it. Now again, the asterisk for anybody who's never sat with me before, if you're in harmful, unsafe, dangerous situations, I'm not saying that you continue to pour out love and compassion while you're in an unhealthy, unsafe space, right? There's nothing kind or compassionate about staying there while you're continuously being abused. But we're not always able to just remove ourselves from situations. And so you have to kind of watch yourself also, balance yourself so it doesn't destroy you too much. But yes, the practice is compassion for their suffering, which is hard, especially, if they treat us a certain way. What else? Yeah.
So I follow a psychologist on Instagram and listen to his podcasts. He's very insightful and also fun and cheeky. And I think to bring kind of a sense of or bring the locus of control kind of back to self. He made a post recently just because of the moment, the political moment and social moment that we're in, that the best thing that we can do is to kind of as our sphere of concern expands, to try to bring our to focus on our sphere of control. And because I'm kind of so overwhelmed by everything that's happening, I feel like my sphere of control is super small or non-existent. And so I'm kind of wondering, how do we approach the practice when we feel like we don't really have a sphere of control?
Sure.
While our sphere of concern continues to expand.
Yeah, so, great question, thoughts, insight, and I think it somewhat depends upon, which I'm going to comment on regardless of how you define that, but what I first want to say is it somewhat depends on what you define as sphere of control. But, and control in a healthy way, meaning things that we can...
Or influence.
Influence,
Yeah,
yes.
That was the actual word. It was sphere of
Influence, yes.
Thank you.
So, think of it, my suggestion would be for practice, even taking it, again, without getting too much insight from that, even one step like back or removed in a sense of, you got yourself here today. You had an influence over that. You had control. That's what I was talking, because control, I was talking about being very dangerous, but you had control over you getting here. Use that word. You influenced to getting here. It's a good thing, right? Do you have at least one or two people in your life that you care about and know and love, or a dog or a cat or an animal? Is there someone in your life that you love? Can you influence them? Did you eat breakfast this morning? Did you have an influence over that? Did you ever stop for 1 minute to think about those three things as positive or good? Do that more. So those are things immediately, right, that you can influence. That's why I said almost even a smaller circle of, I woke up today, I got out of bed, I brushed my teeth. I didn't have to comb my hair, but some of you comb your hair. Right? I had breakfast. I talked to a friend. I watched something funny that made me laugh. You're allowed to laugh. You are allowed to laugh. And the sooner you recognize that, and this might sting a little bit, so please take this with all the love and compassion in the world, but in a way I think it's very, arrogance is the wrong word, so I don't want to say that, but there's a word. I need a word. Can you appease me right now? Let me finish. But there's this thing right now that so many people feel like, how dare they be happy? And how dare they feel joy? And how dare they laugh? And how dare they smile? Is your life over today? No. Do you not deserve happiness? See, you don't even believe that. Keep your therapist, right? My joke here always, if you haven't heard me say it, is half the people come here are in therapy, the other half are therapists, and half of the therapists are in therapy, right? But there is a very big difference, as you've probably heard me talk about, between therapy and Buddhist practice. Buddhist practice is not therapy. Therapy is problem solving and digging stuff out and exploring and talking through childhood trauma and all the relationship trauma and all that kind of stuff. And Buddhist practice is enjoying each moment. The world can be on fire, and you can still be okay. But this is why I want to say arrogant. It's almost arrogant for us to feel like, well, I'm so wonderful that if the world's on fire, I can't feel good. There's something there. Arrogant, I don't think self-importance, yeah, there's something there. But there's so much of that going on right now, and it's incredibly unhealthy. It's so toxic and dangerous because it's helping no one. It's actually the people and places and things in your life that you do have influence over, you're actually destroying that because you're so busy worried about things that you have zero influence over, potentially. I mean, I don't necessarily believe we all have zero influence over everything, but you get my point. So it's, there's this idea of and believe me, you're not the only one. I mean, we've asked it very directly, but it's this constant theme from people going on now, like, how dare I be happy when the world is the way it is?
I believe that I deserve to be happy, and that it's still possible to be happy. It's more just like, so billionaires get to have...
No, don't go there.
Everything.
Don't go there.
And then,
billionaires suffer also. Billionaires are angry and depressed. And I'm gonna say something here just to kind of set the stage as we close. It's going to shock so many of you, right? Please do not make the assumption that just because somebody comes to a Buddhist temple and meditates, that they believe in the same things socially or politically that you do. I've been in this place every day for 18 years. The people in this room right now do not all have the same views as you do. Please don't make that mistake of thinking that. I meant to say this Tuesday night when somebody brought stuff up, and I didn't, but I'm going to say it now because a lot of you are always here. Please don't think that, and this isn't towards you directly, this is actually just triggering something that happened on Tuesday night, and I should have said it then, and this reminded me of that. But please don't think that everybody in this room has the same views you do. They don't. But they're suffering. The billionaires suffer. They might suffer differently than you do. Everybody suffers. The question is, why are you suffering? It all comes back to that. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what
Yeah.
you said. From my religious background, I used to think that suffering was noble, and being raised Christian, I walked away from that. But being raised Christian, it's like it's some kind of merit that we hold as well to say, well, look how much I've been through, so now I can get this little morsel of joy. And like you were saying last week, sometimes good things happen to bad people, sometimes bad things happen to good people. And I think, like he was saying, you should just allow whatever morsel of joy to just be yours and not feel like you have to earn it.
Yeah. And that's why, thank you for saying that. That's why I always kind of loosely joke about watching cartoons or eating cereal. Just those little light-hearted things that when things in the world are so heavy, which they were 10 years ago and 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago, and they will be tomorrow and 10 years from now and continue. If we don't find, and all the great Zen master and teachers I ever learned from, they would always find joy in the little things. It's so important to find joy in the little things. And yeah, quickly, and then we'll close our...
Yeah, it's
funny, I said you quickly. Go ahead. Very quickly, since it's art.
You know, it's you know, at work, a couple of years back, there was an administrator that wanted to get rid of me. She had a grudge against me, but you know, I kind of gave a reason to. But then I relapsed. Went to county jail.
Very quickly, sum it up. We don't need your life story.
Yeah. So then I came to find out that she got fired. And all the would be like, good, you know, she deserved it. But initially, that was my initial thoughts. Afterwards, I was thinking about it. Wow, like she had a kid. And now the kid had nothing to do with it. This lady that I couldn't stand, I kind of started feeling bad for her. Because what she did to me, my family got caught in the process. No one came out winning out of that situation. And I guess that's what my compassion for this lady started coming out.
Yeah.
I prayed for her and hope that she gets her back together.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. And sorry, there were more questions than normal. My apologies for not getting to all your online questions. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to those who need it most. A few quick announcements before y'all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices, people from a different Buddhist tradition leading. Every Thursday, 4:30, we do a food redistribution program. I think it's one of the best things around here. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you kind of lack gratitude for everything that you do have in your life, feed people who sleep on a sidewalk, and it tends to put things into perspective. First Saturday of every month, we have a half day of silence. If you've never done 4 hours of silence, I highly recommend it. It makes 20 minutes of silence that much easier. To my knowledge, everybody has survived. In fact, this morning it's always a miracle when you can get, I think we had 8 college kids this morning do a 4-hour silent retreat. But anytime you can get 8 college kids to a Buddhist temple at 8 in the morning, that's a miracle in its own right. So, but that's the first Saturday of every month. Otherwise, out of the ordinary, nothing. Schedule is as normal. We do have our relatively new Spanish class, Basic Buddhism and Meditation in Spanish every Wednesday night at 7. That's new over the last few weeks. So, otherwise, thanks for being here. Be well.